Hurricane Florence has come and gone. Residents in southeastern North Carolina, though, are still feeling the effects tonight. Several neighborhoods are underwater, leaving many people wondering when or if they'll be able to go back home.
The storm not only responsible for widespread damage, but also at least 32 deaths. 25 were in North Carolina. Despite all this devastation, we're already seeing our community come together. But before we get to that, we take a look at how flooding is impacting you. Wilmington is cut off from the rest of North Carolina as floodwaters continue to rise. North Carolina Department of Transportation posted this video on its Facebook. And no, that's not a river. It's part of I-40 in Pender County near mile marker 387. Several sections of this interstate as well as I-95 are flooded. DOT says it doesn't know when those interstates will reopen, but emphasizes that travel towards this area is unsafe. Now, major interstates aren't the only roads impacted by flooding. This is a look at Highway 17 in Bolivia, or what's left of it. You can see most of it has been washed away. Now, many are still waiting for water to recede in their neighborhoods after a flash flood surrounded their homes.
Raycom's Rob Krieger talked to one man in the Leland community, and tonight he's just thankful that his family is dry.
I'm in the Stony Creek Plantation subdivision in Leland, where you can see water has inundated homes near the end of the subdivision. I'm standing in someone's yard right now, but residents tell us yesterday the water was up to the second story. Swamping cars, swallowing homes, the sights at the end of Stony Creek, heartbreaking. One family, determined to salvage something, took a canoe to get into the second story of their home after evacuating. But for one man, the night the water rose is still a nightmare.
We got rescued off my roof yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know who he was. He's a neighbor from here someplace. We could not get out. Somebody with a John boat in this neighborhood, I don't even know who he is yet, came out and risked his life at 6 o'clock in the morning in the dark to drive down there with a ladder and get us off of that roof and get us. I got 3 dogs, a cat, my daughter, and we were just trapped.
Tom Meyer, his daughter, and their dogs are safe now, but his home still filled with water from Florence. Today, he had to see it, even if it meant a battle with his emotions.
Driving down the road, coming into here, I just started crying, but I had to come and see what it looked like. That makes me feel so much better that when I left, you couldn't even see the windows on the house, the first floor. They were gone. I had no front door, I had no garage, nothing.
As his neighbors fill their canoe with anything they can carry, he's still left wondering how all this happened.
Never did I think this stuff would rise at 1 foot an hour. We went to bed, it was after 9 o'clock at night, I had no water in the house. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to hear all the furniture on the first floor flipping over as it started floating all over the place.
Meyer was just weeks away from listing his home after renovations and repairs. Now the prospect of picking up the pieces just seems hopeless.
I'm broke. I'm broken in the street, man. So, I don't know. I really just don't know.
But Meyer is a man of faith, and as slim as the light may shine at the end of Stony Creek, he's got hope that God's hand will find a way.
There's hope. There's hope. The water's going down, man. 3 feet's a start. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get back in here. Hopefully everything on the second floor is still all right.
Clearly a trying time for so many here as they try and figure out the next steps. Their first hope, that this water goes away sometime soon. In Leland, for WECT, I'm Rob Krieger.
Now, dozens of homes in that neighborhood are not affected by floodwater tonight, but people in that community are still waiting for crews to restore power.
Many roads still impassable tonight. If you're trying to get through western Pender County on Highway 210 near Moores Creek Battlefield, you can forget that. Drivers smartly abandon cars to seek safety in this rapidly rising water. Residents living on the other side of this stream tell us they have never seen anything like this flooding. A 6-foot deep waterfall has developed in the center of the roadway, making it impossible to travel. Now, this is a look at Highway 210 near Rocky Point. The northeast Cape Fear River has spilled its banks and swift water rescue teams have been pulling people out for days. Meteorologist Colin Hackman has the story.
Meteorologist Colin Hackman here, standing on Highway 210 in Pender County, usually used for cars moving back and forth between Rocky Point and Hampstead, but now the cars are just moving with the current, and that's because there's so much water here on Highway 210 that's encroaching into houses. The best way now to move around is by boat. Highway 210, a raging rapid near the Moores Creek battlefield. Vehicles abandoned, roads washed out. Swiftwater rescue teams from as far away as Indiana chip in to help more than 70 people escape the flooding waters of the Northeast Cape Fear.
I've been out there before, but it wasn't quite like this.
Alongside them, regular residents who lost their own property chip in to help others. Their mission, to get as many people out as they can.
Completely satisfying. It's a breath of fresh air because you know that there's less souls that are out there that are in danger, that are in peril.
As the water rises, even though rescuers think that they did a good job of getting anyone who wanted to get out of this area out, residents are still pessimistic that this water continuing to rise may force them to make other plans. In Pender County, I'm meteorologist Colin Hackman. Now back to you.
Some say they were desperate. Others accused of taking advantage of an emergency. Accused looters during Florence faced a judge earlier today. WECT's Marissa Hundley in the studio tonight. Their first time in court, Marissa, was open in several days?
Yeah, the first time in New Hanover County since last Wednesday that court was open. These 10 all accused of stealing from businesses closed down because of Hurricane Florence. In all, there were 41 first appearances today. Most of the suspects were arrested during and after the storm, including those accused of stealing from the Dollar General store on Dawson and 5th Streets. District Attorney Ben David says the suspected looters are both local and from out of town. Some, he says, were desperate for supplies. Others, simply opportunists.
Regardless of the motive, and that is not a part of our burden of proof, what we have to be mindful of is that everyone right now is going through trying times. All of us are having to make certain accommodations right now with this storm. And going to lawlessness will not be tolerated.
There was also a murder arrest today. Police say 22-year-old Trent Williams killed Quayshawn McRae last month. McRae was shot on Greenfield Street and later died at the hospital. Williams' wife, Leah Falk, also arrested today. She's accused of looting at the Family Dollar store across from Houston Moore.
Something is missing from the view of downtown Wilmington, and that's soon going to be a permanent view. The space where the Coast Guard cutter Diligence normally docks is empty and will be vacant for good before the end of next year because the Diligence is leaving Wilmington after 30 years, moving to a city in Florida. The official decision to move the Diligence happened less than 2 weeks ago now, January 11th, but the public announcement came today.
Wilmington Mayor Bill Saffo says he was blindsided by the move. This is video of the ship coming back into port last month. Now, I talked with Mayor Saffo just about an hour ago about the decision. He says we'll still be a Coast Guard city even with the Diligence gone.
I found out about it as I was coming back from a meeting in Bergall today that Diligence had made the decision to move to Pensacola, Florida. I was not aware that that decision had been made until I heard it today, and it's unfortunate. Of course, it's a sad day for our community because the Coast Guard has been here for a long time, but we're still going to have a significant Coast Guard presence here with the Vector that moved here from Elizabeth City many years ago, about 75 personnel that will still be here, and we're still going to be called a Coast Guard city.
WECT's Emily Featherston has been following this breaking news all afternoon.
She's live now along the riverfront downtown. Emily, you've talked to a lot of people in town today. How are they reacting to the decision?
Well, a good example are the folks right here on Water Street, those businesses that are right across from the Diligence. They say they're sad to see it go. They see it every day right outside their front door, so they're going to miss having those crew members. The Diligence has a 78-member crew, and they're not here right now. They're out on mission, and that's really the view that people are going to get used to after a while. I am here with Wilmington City Council member Charlie Rivenbark. Now, you said that you understand why the Coast Guard is doing this. They're doing it because they're moving to larger ship sizes. They have some homeland security concerns. But what are your thoughts now that after so long that we'll be losing the Diligence?
Well, it's just one of those things, I guess, like me, everybody just figures they'll always be here. and things change, and they're doing this to benefit the Coast Guard. And I certainly understand it. Do I like it? No, I wish they could be here forever. But we'll always be a Coast Guard town. We'll have the Oak Island presence, the Wrightsville Beach presence of the Coast Guard. So it's not the end, but this sure will look different down here without the Diligence or any Coast Guard cutter on the dock, because they've been here for a long time. The old revenue cutters before them, and then the Coast Guard cutters. So it's going to be a change. But I assure you, the city will, if we're able to, we'll take this space right here, and we'll blend it in with our Riverwalk and our riverfront park, and it'll be very, very nice.
When we spoke with Mayor Saffo earlier, he said that the city has been aware that this was a possibility for the last couple of years, and now part of this change will be the Coast Guard's going to work to try and bring this area back into a more usable state. Why do you think it's important to extend the riverfront park down this way? What do you think that'll mean for the downtown area here?
Well, probably one of the number one attractions when people come from out of town or people just come downtown that already live here, our Riverwalk is foremost among all of the attractions. And this has not been a snaggletooth in it, but we had problems with the bulkheading underneath, and our Congressman David Rouser was able to secure the funding from the Coast Guard to do that, and that's going to happen whether the Diligence is here or not. So it'll just be a continuation of what we got on the north and south end of the Riverwalk. I think it's going to be a wonderful day for the citizens.
Now, I'm told that work should start sometime next month. Like we said, the Diligence isn't leaving right away. Once they come back from their current mission, they will be here until next year. The Coast Guard spokesperson told me that it'll probably be the summer of 2020 when they make that transition. Now, Mr. Rivenbark here and Mayor Saffo weren't the only people that we talked to today. John, I believe that you talked with Congressman David Rouser. What did he have to say?
Well, when I asked him how long he had known about the possibility, he told me, he said, he's known the possibility the Diligence could leave for quite some time, but he learned of it being a done deal just last week. He also told me when he first learned about the chance the cutter could leave, he asked the Coast Guard about getting a new cutter here in town.
I knew it was a possibility because I had been informed that they were going to move the Diligence. They were going to decommission it. And at the time, I did not know that any new cutter was going to be 360 feet long and far too big to be ported there at the city of Wilmington.
The congressman said when he learned that was not a possibility, he asked the Coast Guard to rebuild the bulkhead along the river. He got that $6.7 million needed for the project. And as far as his knowledge, the Coast Guard is in the process of bidding out that work for that project to begin. Now, over the years, Fran, you know, we've seen several heartwarming reunions when the Diligence crew comes back and their families go right to that spot along the riverfront to greet them.
And the reunions continued as the Diligence came back home for the first time since Hurricane Florence. The ship returned near the end of last October after its planned 60-day mission. Even though the crew wasn't in Wilmington during Hurricane Florence, they still helped with relief. They delivered supplies to Bald Head Island and other areas that were hard hit after the storm. The Diligence also helped with recovery in the Florida Panhandle after Hurricane Michael. The Diligence crew doesn't just help with hurricane recovery and rescue operations, though. They also stop drugs from coming into the United States. In February of 2017, the crew seized nearly 2,500 kilograms of cocaine in the eastern Pacific Ocean. It came from 3 ships believed to be on their way from Colombia to the U.S. and was worth more than $60 million. The crew also detained 25 people after the bust. About 1 year later, the Diligence crew was part of a $190 million cocaine seizure. 5 cutters were involved in the operation off the coast of Mexico, Central and South America.
Came outside with the firearm again. He has 2 guns, 1 revolver, 1 semi-automatic.
911 calls revealed tense moments leading up to a deadly officer-involved shooting. Wilmington police shot a man after they say he refused to drop his weapons. The man's wife called 911 reporting that her husband had guns and barricaded himself inside their bedroom, threatening suicide.
Now, she said he had already fired 1 shot through the ceiling of their home. Police went to Owens Court responding to that call, which came in about 7 o'clock. About 20 minutes later, officers say the 62-year-old man came out of the home heavily armed. WECT's Alex Garino spent several hours on the scene last night and again today working to learn more. Now, Alex, you also listened to the 911 calls. What else did you learn?
Well, John Fran, the 911 calls revealed the man was suicidal. His wife of more than 30 years was home with him at the time he made the call, and she said he had been drinking and has never done anything like this before. In a quiet neighborhood on a Wednesday night, a chilling call to 911.
My husband's threatening to commit suicide.
Okay, all right. Does he have a weapon?
Yes, he does.
Okay, what type of weapon does he have, ma'am?
Handgun.
The wife of the 62-year-old man shot and killed by police told the dispatcher her husband had been drinking and hadn't had anything to eat that day. She said when she tried to feed him, he threw the food outside and barricaded himself in his bedroom with the gun.
Have any shots been fired yet, ma'am?
He shot a fire through the ceiling.
How many shots? Just one?
One.
The dispatcher stayed on the phone with the woman until police arrived on scene minutes later.
Okay, they're arriving.
Officer radio recordings indicate the man went in and outside of the home multiple times once the police arrived.
Somebody just came outside, went back inside.
At 7:11 p.m., officers said he came outside again, this time with guns.
Came outside with the firearm again. He has two guns, one revolver, one semi-automatic.
He then went back inside his home.
Back inside again.
The final time he came out refusing to drop his weapons was at 7:15 p.m. after police reportedly told him to drop them multiple times.
10-3, he's back outside again. 10-3, he's refusing to drop the gun.
At 7:15, police records indicate shots were fired and the suspect was down. Around 19 minutes passed between the time the man's wife called 911 and the time officers fired shots. We're still waiting for the man's identity to be released by the SBI, and we're also waiting for WPD to give us information on the two officers involved in the shooting. Per protocol, the two officers involved have been placed on paid administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigations.
Now, this is not the first time a suspect has exited their home armed with several guns pointed at officers. A similar situation happened almost 1 year ago on Valor Drive in the Murrayville area. Joshua Bryant was barricaded inside a home there for nearly 9 hours. His mother called 911 saying he was threatening suicide. WECT's Bryant Reed talked with her today. Bryant, almost a year later, how is she dealing with this?
Well, friend, Emily Matthews and her family say it's hard for them to hear about. She says they vividly remember the day her son was killed, and it all hits home, and that's too close to home.
A mother's child is her greatest source of love. On June 5th, 2018, Emily Matthews lost her son.
Just seems so unreal.
Killed in a standoff with the New Hanover County Sheriff's Office, Matthews says the killing of a 62-year-old man Wednesday, after he refused to drop his weapons, reminds her of the standoff with her son.
When I saw what happened this morning or last night with the man across the street, the whole scenario was like the same thing. He was suicidal. He barricaded himself in the house. They say he came out with multiple weapons. Turned the same thing they said about my son.
Matthews says her son was one of a kind, and their relationship was unbreakable.
I mean, he was just a very considerate, very loving person, and I've never known him, ever known him to be ugly or mean to anyone.
Matthews and her family turned to God in hard times, with religion keeping them strong and holding the family down. They know Josh is in a better place.
My brother-in-law was there at the funeral home, and he said, "Oh, Emily, I wanted to show you this picture I found this morning." And he said, "Look where the star is over Josh's head," and that was, God said, he's with me.
Josh had recently been prescribed a new medicine, and the day before, he was involved in a fight. Now, his family believes this is the reason Josh acted so out of character, but the Josh they will remember will always be one of love and kindness.